new Let's Play. This is the pixelated horror game Home. This is a relatively short game, so we'll probably be doing the entire game in this one episode. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So let's do this. Alright. There's something by my feet. A flashlight. Alright, here we go. This house. That house. Where was I? Who was it? Wow. Headphone alert, that was loud and screechy. The desk had a computer and some papers on it, and a single drawer. I didn't want to snoop, but did I open the drawer? Yeah. Receipts, pens, and a blurry photo. Looked kind of like a store or some kind. Why did this look so familiar? Blood on the wall. It smelled fresh and sickening. I realized there was blood on my shoes and pants. Oh man, I had to get out of there. Alright. Alright, down the stairs. I was upset. She looked afraid. I shook my head and tried to clear it. I knew I shouldn't head downstairs, try to find a way out. The shelf was full of books on local history and hunting. It seemed kind of like the owner of the house really knew the area. Let's see what's over here. Basement. Alright. The thin gray mouse was stuck in a trap. It looked frantic but exhausted. Did I free it? Yeah, I'm not a monster. A collection of rusty tools. These looked like they'd seen a lot of use and were caked in damp smelling dirt. Why weren't they in the shed? I found a picture of a couple. It looked like it had been moved a lot. There seemed to be a switch behind it. Did I push the switch? It pressed smoothly into the wall. I heard a faraway click somewhere. Okay, so let's go through this door. An old dining table covered in dirty dishes for 2 people. There were dozens of beer cans and other liquor bottles among the dishes. The smell was turning my stomach. A black and white photo looked like the man upstairs and his wife. I guessed. There was no reason for me to keep it, but did I take it? Yeah. I slipped the photo into my pocket. Maybe this would help me find some answers. Looked like hell. I looked like hell. My clothes were dirty and torn, and there was mud caked all over my shoes. The front door was blocked by a pile of furniture. I knew I had to find another way out. The bathroom was spotless. Everything had been wiped to a sheen. I wondered if it was the man's wife who did the cleaning, or him. There was a photo development tray lying on the floor. Some leftover negatives were sticking out, but they were pretty blurry. I thought I saw what looked like treetops. Oh, what the hell was that? Okay. Okay, hold on a sec. I'm gonna turn this down just a hair on my end, because that's like literally ear piercing. The switch in the wall appeared to have unlocked the door. The box looked heavy, but there were marks on the floor. It had obviously been moved out. Maybe I found a way out? I must have moved it, right? I heaved the box forward and it finally gave. There was a ladder going underground where the box was. A dank smell rose from the passage. Did I climb down the ladder? Yes, I did. I looked again at the photo I found in the house. The couple looked distant, like they didn't want to be in the same picture. I wondered where the wife was. My leg was in terrible shape, but I had to get out. Footprints in the dirt looked like more than one kind and a lot of traffic. Places all over were marked on the old map of town. The industrial area near the river, various houses, and even the water tower near the old rail station. Newspaper clippings from the local paper. They were all about murders in town over the last few years. Wait, there was photos. Photos of our house. What the hell was that about? Maybe I should have looked around more, tried to find some kind of information. A work table, covered in papers, dirt, and a handgun. I hated guns. I didn't take it, did I? And I tucked the small handgun into my pocket. Its weight was somehow reassuring. It was so dark down there, and the air smelled stale and putrid. I couldn't believe what I saw. What was this place? The desk looked old and was caked with grime. On it was a stack of old faded paper covered with what looked like names. They were scratched out, and illegible notes were written beside them in faded blue ink. I could only make out a few letters. He, I-V, E-Y, H-E, I, R, A-P-H, O, R-O. None of it made any sense to me. Alright. Some kind of homemade rack slung together with poorly cut wood and rope. It was caked with old blood. Somebody didn't actually use that, did they? Crudely made shelves. They looked like they were holding cans of some kind of corrosive. The labels were worn and slick, but I could still see the warnings. It looked like a cage. It was small, but there was something coating the bottom, something wet. Some kind of old boxes. They looked like they were years old. Wait a minute. These boxes had old clothes in them. Clothes I remembered throwing out after Rachel and I moved to town. What the hell were they doing down there? There wasn't anyone there. Was I hearing things? Bunch of bats up there. I remember noticing the broken ladder. I had to be careful. Yeah, we're gonna jump down here. Hold on a second to readjust my glasses. Ow, they hurt. Alright. So we're down in the basement. Down as far as we can go, I think, now. A bunch of old newspapers, we pasted together. A message had been hastily smeared on it. Keep out. Danger due to cave-in. The gun was heavy and uncomfortable in my pocket, and didn't help ease the constant dull ache in my leg. I opened the metal door and was glad to have the slick, wet walls of those tunnels behind me. What was the man upstairs up to? What was he doing there? As the musty scent of those rock walls was replaced with an altogether different smell, I braced myself. There was dirt on the ground. It looked wet, and there was grass smeared within it. I could hear faint trickling sound like water. What was that? Well, first, let's see what's up here. Disgusting. It was a mess of filthy garbage bags. There were rips and tears in most of the bags. What looked like an old videotape was sticking out. Did I tape the tape? I wasn't sure what I hoped to discover with the tape, but yeah, I took it anyway. There was a rusty ladder sunk into the water, which smelled disgusting. I knew I couldn't climb down that. Maybe I could find a way to drain the putrid water? A kitchen knife covered in drying blood. Thinking about it made me sick. Did I even want to touch it? Did I take the knife? I slipped the knife into my boot. Since I had the gun in my pocket, did I really need all this? You never know. Yeah, especially after that, I would say yes. Okay, so one, I thought I could turn this water valve to shut off its flow. Did I turn it? Looks like I turned off the water flow in this valve. I thought I could turn this water valve to shut off its flow. Did I turn it? Valve is still active. Did I turn it again? Looks like I turned off the water flow in this valve. I thought I could turn off this water valve to shut off its flow. Did I turn it off? Valve is still active. Did I turn it again? Valve was still active. Did I turn it once more? I thought I could turn this water valve to shut off its flow. Did I turn it? Oh my god, yes. Okay. So it looks like that's all the water. We should be able to climb down that ladder now. Here we go. Looks like the water drained out of that grate in the wall. There was a small metal key left floating in the shallow pool of rancid water. Did I take it? I pocketed the small key, but it was so odd-shaped I had no idea what it might open. Alright, let's move on. The safety poster had definitely seen better days. How old was that facility? Door was locked. I could see a faint light within. That doesn't sound good. I found another dead body. A sewer worker. By the wounds all over his face and body, I figured he'd been stabbed repeatedly. There was a key ring sticking out of the man's pocket. Did I take it? I thought about the knife I had found with some disgust, and I had carefully picked the keys from his pocket. I was almost worried he was going to grab me. There was a hint of fresh air here. It must have been near an exit. But I wondered, what did that key I found on the sewer worker do? And what was on the videotape I had found? Made my way up the ladder as best I could on my leg. Would I really need that gun or that knife before the end? I wondered what was on that VHS tape I found, or in that locked room. Should I have gone back to check? My head was buzzing with questions and tired thoughts as I ascended the ladder. Suddenly, as I lifted the heavy lid above me, I could smell fresh, old pine trees. I'm guessing you can't go back down, eh? That would be a no. Okay. Oh, wait. Yeah, I can't go back down. Okay. Ooh, there's lights in there's eyes in the fog. Look at that, right there, right there. Cool. Okay. So we won't find out what was on that VHS tape or in that locked room, I guess. An old ladder leading up to an ancient water tower. The ladder needed to be extended so I could climb it. Did I extend the ladder? I popped the latch and brought the ladder down. Let's see what's up here. In a patch of smeared dirt and grass, there was a beat-up old wallet. I thought it was mine. Did I take it? I slid the filthy wallet into my back pocket. I noticed it didn't contain any kind of gun permit. In fact, it didn't contain any cards or ID of any kind. I thought I should recover my credit cards and driver's license at least. From the railing I could see over the woods and down to the entrance to the sewers. Had I come through there before? If I did, someone definitely could have seen me. Back down. More eyes. I tried the little key I had fished out of the murky puddle in the sewers, and it fit, and I heaved open the rusty door. The wind was picking up a bit, and the night air had been becoming strangely chilly. Nothing over here. The old train station was quiet as a tomb. The only sound was that of the increasing wind buffeting the decrepit structure. Let's see here. The ancient ticket booth was falling apart and covered in dust and grime. Stacks of paper lined the counter, faded remains of old schedules and reports. Among the papers were newer-looking sheets covered in scribbles and illegible notes. Come to think of it, the man in that house had kept similar scribbles hidden on his bookshelf, and he had notes on the water tower outside, too. I guess he could have been coming here, but why? What was he using this old station for? Let's see here. An old map encased in glass hung on the wall. It was the train routes connected to that old station. As I looked at it, it seemed familiar. And of course, the map I found in those tunnels had similar locations marked in the notes I found on the other man's bookshelf. His notes mentioned the water tower and even this train yard. What was he doing, coming back here? Okay, I was gonna say I have a bad feeling about that. Okay. And the old train was ripped open and hanging from a shred of metal, as well as the broken fence was a dark stained patch of cloth. It looked synthetic, like some kind of outerwear. Inside the train shell I could see a few faint impacts, like wounds. Could they have been bullet marks? Was somebody shot there? The ground was well worn, though I couldn't make anything out. I realized I was touching the gun I had found as I thought. There's really nothing else. More eyes. There's something watching us from the woods. Okay, so let's get back here and we'll head back out. So this is the way here. So we'll just keep moving this way. Here we go. This must have been the entrance to the forest that was mentioned on the map I had seen. Whoever was poking around in those tunnels underneath that man's house was scribbled. Notes on this place, but I couldn't make them out. Here, the sign pointed out various campsites and walking paths within the woods. It mentioned a river. And maybe a washroom, but the rest was too faded to see clearly. Oh boy. Let's see what's behind the brush. A dry old picnic table sat lonely amongst the trees. It had carvings and marks from years of previous campers. As I tried to read some of the names and the marks, I idly thumbed the knife I found. If I wanted to, I could have carved something on that table. Did I? With a few crude strokes, I etched simple design into the wood. R plus H. I felt like a teenager defacing the table. The forest was split by a freezing river. It looked like the bottom was all rocks. My leg throbbed with the pain of jumping down that broken ladder. It was too dangerous to try and make it across in this state. I had to turn back. So it's behind. Trampled into the dirt was grass was a plastic card of some kind. I brushed it off and was surprised to see it was my credit card. I wasn't sure if it was still usable, but it was mine. Did I take back my credit card? I pocketed the credit card, Hopefully I could find my driver's license too. Through the fence I could see through the fence I could see a dilapidated outbuilding. I wondered if I could find my way around. There was some kind of personal effects shoved back into the rock. Wait, was there a notebook there too? Did I read it? Inside the cheap dollar store notebook, page after worn page of it names and lists. None of it made much sense. The newest page contained several names. Heather, Olivia, Ashley, Cheryl, Iris, Daphne, Holly, Rose, Rachel. Rachel? Her name was last on the list and had a mark beside it in blue ink. The names Daphne and Olivia had been crossed out in the same blue ink. Cheryl, Heather, and Rose had all been crossed out, but these marks looked older and more faded. A few embers still burned within the fire pit. Who was camping here? Was it? One of the two folding camping chairs was knocked over and there was beer spilled everywhere. Where did the campers run off to in such a hurry? There was a cheap two-person dome tent. Through the screen on the front I could see 2 sleeping bags, backpacks, and a small cooler. I'm kind of lost out here. Oh wait. Here we go. The grimy sink had a small patch in it that looked almost clean. There was a damp-smelling plank leaning against the stall door. I might have been able to cross the river with it. Did I take it? I managed to carry the plank under my arm so it didn't get in the way. Alright. So we can backtrack over to the river then. We just have to re-find the river. Okay. Oh wait, there's one. Here we go, I can hear the river. The cold-looking river rushed by before me. The plank I found seemed safer than trying to hobble across on my own. Did I use it? Yes. Very good. What the heck? 2 bodies, 2 young women, were half dug into a hasty shallow grave between the trees. The younger-looking one was still face up, her dead eyes gleaming against my flashlight. They deserved better than that. Did I clean up the gravesite? I tried to cover them up a bit more, and I closed the younger woman's eyes. I fashioned a crude marker. I wasn't sure why, but I felt I had to do something. The girls weren't carrying IDs, so I couldn't determine their names. I only hoped that whoever had done this had done it quickly. I wondered now if they had a phone or something at their campsite. Maybe I could call for help. We were already there, but there was nothing. Ah, we have to go. Did I cross back over to the other shore? Yes. Oh, got a trophy out of that at least. Okay, let's try this. And this leads to the building, right? No. Yeah, I know I have to get home. I'm just kind of lost here, pal. I'm more than willing to help, though. Okay. Here we go. Okay, if I had finally found the exit, once I left, I knew I would never wanted to return there. Okay, so we found where we need to go. The forest started to thin out a bit, and through the trees I could make out parts of the town beyond, and the first hints of light. The mysteries of that forest were behind me, but I could still feel them on my neck, like a warm breath. Those girls I had found, someone had taken them from their campsite and murdered them. Was it the same person who had left that odd notebook? I was even more eager to get somewhere safe and find a way to reach Rachel. As I stepped through the gate, I suddenly recognized the auto parts factory where I had worked as a machinist for all those years. The plant had closed almost 3 years ago now. Times were better then. I thought I could hear a faint rustling behind me. Maybe it was just the wind. Got another space we can explore here. Found the body of a security guard, just doing his job, no doubt. His face was covered with blood from some kind of head wound. I wondered, was this flashlight his? Dug into the ground was a cracked old watch. First my wallet and now this? Did I retrieve my watch? The watch was useless, but I had put it on my wrist anyway. The hell was that? One of the lockers hung open. Its contents were tossed around like someone had been looking for something. The door was locked shut. There was a little electrical box under the handle. A sign was pasted to the front that said, "Danger, close for repairs." There were a large power box with 5 lights on it. Cables burst out of the box, snaking off to other parts of the factory. The metal was starting to wear, and cobwebs have collected on the corners. The box wasn't receiving power. The door was locked tight. It seemed to be connected to the power box behind it. Every part of this plant smelled like old and rotten. I noticed the old bulletin board on the wall. The board contained yellow clippings of newspaper cartoons and notices. There were notes to and from the guys that worked here. One of them, who was Norman, who was one of the older guys on the line. Blah, blah, blah. The power panel. Looked like it was shut off. Did I push the switch? The power panel still wasn't working. Did I try it again? There we go. The open locker was stuffed with dirty work clothes and old boots. There was a photo of a woman taped to the inside, but it was scratched out and the face was unrecognizable. Power panel. Looks like it was shut off. Did I push the switch? Here we go. Our break table. The layer of dust and grime only made seeing this sting more. This was Norman's locker. The door was dented, like someone had punched it. I don't remember him doing that while we worked here. Another panel that I hoped could get me to get the power back on. Did I push it? Utility shelf crammed with mismatched tools and items. There was a claw hammer on the shelf. Did I take the hammer? As I took the hammer, I noticed it wasn't as dusty as the rest of the tools on the shelf. The locker was a complete mess. Hidden at the bottom, though, was a magnetic card. Did I take this card? I slipped the key card into my pocket. Another panel. Did I push it? Power still wasn't working. Did I try it again? No. Power panel still wasn't working. Did I try it again? There we go. Another panel that I hoped could get me to the power. Did I push the switch? Did I push it again? That makes 4. Alright. So let's go back. Got one more room we could try on this floor, I believe. Here we go. Let's see if we can get that. I struck with the hammer. The old wooden boards came apart easily. After I had removed the planks, I left the hammer on the floor. There was my locker. There, in the factory. It stank of booze. There was a picture of Rachel on the inside. It looked like it had been torn up. I thought I had taken that picture home when the factory closed. There was a mess of empty booze bottles. I wondered if that man in the house had something to do with this. He sure had a lot of alcohol at his place. So that's all for that. Now we can get through this magnetic door inside here. The key card I found seemed like it would pass through this reader. Did I use the key card? I slid the card through the old reader and turned the handle. There was some kind of ventilation hatch there. It looked like I could jump down to the room below. I really didn't want to damage my leg anymore. Did I jump down? Not yet. Well, let's see where this would take us. My leg was shooting with pain. I wasn't going to be able to move too quickly on it. There was a crumpled up letter on the floor. It had been scratched out heavily, and it was hard to make out. Did I try to read the letter? Most of the letter was violently scratched out with what looked to be a ballpoint pen. All I could make out was, need to. Just don't. Drinking. Need Norman. Who was Norman writing to? I stepped out of the factory, just glad to be rid of that smell and of its memories. I couldn't stop thinking about that room with the bottles in it. Was that guard I found outside really drinking up there? What about Norman? And who had rooted through all these lockers? Couldn't tell where I was as I looked around, but I figured I needed to get to a road, get my bearings. Maybe Norman could help. His store wasn't that far from the turnoff to the factory, if I remember correctly. Here we go. The garbage bin was a disgusting mess of rotten food and slick black bags. I saw a thin greenish corner poking out from one of the bags, though. It was my driver's license. It looked damaged. Did I take it back? I cleaned the card off as best I could. It looked pretty beat up. I was amazed to have found my credit card, and now this? I tucked the card into my wallet next to my credit card. It sounded like it was going to start raining again. I had entered Norman's place. This was the back of the store that he ran. It was oddly quiet, except for the faint sound of a television. What the hell? One of Rachel's old autumn coats hung on a rack. That was Norman's bedroom, wasn't it? What was this doing here? Inside the cabinet was a small but impressive collection of hunting rifles, shotguns, and even a few items I didn't even think were legal here. One of the slots was empty. The gun I had found seemed to match the others there. If the handgun was Norman's, what the hell was he doing with it? The gun would fit there. Did I place it back in the cabinet? I carefully pushed the piece back in place and felt a great burden lifted. The TV was still flickered, some indecipherable channel. couldn't make out what was on the screen, but that glow just gave me the chills. Oh no. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Norman, my coworker and one of my few friends I had in town, lay dead beside his armchair. His face and shirt were covered in blood. It looked like he had been shot trying to get up. His eyes were wide with shock, though they were already drying. Norman, what was Rachel doing here, and why did you have her coat? Norman, maybe you deserve better. You probably did. Did I close his eyes? I closed his eyelids down, shuddering as I did so. I wasn't sure if I wanted to give him peace or if I just couldn't stand to think anymore about what was going on. I guess this was Norman's kitchen table. He kept it clean enough, but there were water rings from 2 cups still there in the wood. The kitchen trash bin smelled fresh. I didn't dig through that mess, did I? Oh, I did. I found a hairpin amongst the rotten food and trash and pocketed it. Alright, there's everything from over here. I used the hairpin to pick the lock. The hairpin snapped in half, so I threw it away. The general store was small, but it was clean. I had the usual things: postcards, snacks, magazines, canned goods. I never went there much. Rachel usually stopped by after work if we needed anything. The register was mostly empty, and a fat stack of travel magazines sat beside it. The icebox seemed to be unplugged. It must have been off for a while. Most of its contents were half melted. There were various postcards from the area, especially from the tourist traps. One of the postcards showed an old black and white photo of the water tower. It looked to me in much better shape then. Norman was dead, but I had no idea why. Was he involved in all this somehow, or was he just another victim? That gun I had found only seemed to complicate things. It was such a relief to finally be rid of it. Home wasn't far off now, even though the rain was relentless. I had to keep going. It was locked. This wasn't the right gate. Gate was locked tight. This wasn't my house. Gate was locked tight. The neighbor's local post box. A letter was sticking out as if someone hadn't pushed it all the way in. Knew it wasn't right, but did I look at the letter? There was no return address, but the envelope was addressed to Norman. Carefully I tore it open and looked at the letter inside. It read, "Stay away. She's mine." That was it. No signature, no other information. I think I'm starting to put together the story here. I had entered my backyard. The rain gave me a terrible sense of foreboding, and it chilled me through my clothes. I was expectant, but also afraid. I held my breath as I approached our back door. I was terrified to step inside. The house was painfully quiet. The only sound was my own breathing, ragged and strained. I flicked the light switch by the door. The power was off. I remember having breakfast here on this very table. Was it yesterday or sometime before? The door to the basement. It was locked. Where had I put the damned key? There was a small pile of mail on the floor in front of the mail slot. How long had I been away? Why hadn't Rachel picked this up? Most of the contents were bills. There was a credit card bill there. Did I open it? I ripped the bill open and read it. To my surprise, it said something about canceling my credit card due to non-payment. What the hell? The front door was locked from inside. I couldn't go out, though. I needed to see if Rachel was around. The door was stuck shut. There was an old-fashioned keyhole underneath the handle. I had found the last missing piece from my wallet. The old photo of Rachel and I stared back at me, reminding me of better times. It didn't make me feel terribly comfortable. Did I keep it anyway? I replaced the photo in my wallet, feeling like I had got part of my life back. Still, the image made me uneasy. Why had I thrown it away? Old television. I had purchased it before I knew I was going to lose my job. Felt pretty guilty about it afterward, but by then, it was too late. Our hallway mirror had been smashed into pieces, scattered around the floor. My laptop had been left on, and only had a tiny bit of power left. On the screen was a website about the old water tower. There was a key in the top drawer of my desk. Did I take it? I pocketed the key. Our sink, which needed to be replaced. One of the taps always stuck, but I hadn't gotten around to fixing it yet. We were lucky enough to get a house with one of those wonderful old claw-footed bathtubs. The books there were half mine, half Rachel's. Hey, now that I looked more closely, it looked like the man in the house had some of the same books as I did. There was a suitcase on the bed. It was Rachel's. I remembered it from the trip we took out west. Did I open it? I wasn't sure what to make of the suitcase contents. Inside were a few days' worth of clothes, some toiletries, and a train ticket. Where was she planning to go? Was stuck shut. There was an old-fashioned keyhole underneath the handle. I unlocked the basement door and headed down. There were old Christmas decorations in the box. The garbage bags were stuffed with old paint cans and supplies. There was a dirty old key here. Did I take the key? I took the small key and tried to remember what it unlocked. There were old clothes, tools, and other things we obviously hadn't thrown out yet. I had put up this divider wall last summer so we could create a separate room in the basement. I hadn't finished it yet, so the door was stuck, and the drywall was poorly installed. I might have been able to break through if I had found something heavy enough. Alright, I think we're pretty much getting close to the ending on this. So let's see here. The grimy key I had found in the basement unlocked the door. It looked like the room I had been tossed around. The furniture was a mess. Did somebody break in? There was an old crowbar on the floor. Did I need to take the crowbar? I lifted the heavy crowbar. I appreciated its weight. And I guess that's all there really is for that. We'll head down into the basement now. The heavy crowbar should allow us to get through that dividing wall in the basement. Did I break through the wall with the crowbar? With a heave, I swung the crowbar at the wall. I smashed a hole large enough to step through. As I stepped through the broken wall, my breath caught in my throat. This was it. Was Rachel down there? Was she okay? Don't look, it says. A filthy-looking pile of rags had been dumped in the corner. The stench of them was awful and made my eyes water. I was terrified to even touch the pile to see what lay within, but I knew I had to. I had come this far. After all this searching, after all I had seen, and I looked within the rags, did I finally find my Rachel? hands trembled as I pulled back the layers of cloth. There at the center, under the dirt mess, was my beloved, my Rachel. Her arms were bruised all over and slashed repeatedly. Her clothes were ripped and torn. Even through all that sickening blood, it was obvious she'd been stabbed to death. The knife I had carried all this way suddenly seemed like a poison. What the hell happened, Rachel? Who did this to you? I thought about all I had seen and wondered if any of it could help me figure out who had done this. And when I couldn't stay there any longer, I stepped away on shaky legs, made my way back upstairs. Reluctantly, exhausted from my journey, I could no longer resist the urge to close my eyes. It was my wallet with all its contents intact. Either I dropped that stuff or somebody else did. Maybe I was sleepwalking again, or maybe somebody stole it from me. Norman's store, that forest, that water tower. Was I at those places before? I didn't see how it could have happened any other way. I must have been the one to lose my wallet and all its contents. But what does that mean? This was an old photo that was other man and his wife, I assumed, I found in that house. There were a lot of disturbing things in those tunnels underneath that house. Maybe that man wasn't quite what he seemed. Well, what did I think? Was that man involved with this whole mess somehow? Definitely. Those tunnels, those odd tools in his house. He wasn't innocent, that's for sure. It was the key card I found in the factory, the one that allowed me to slip through that door. It seemed to me that it was probably Norman's, but if that was true, what was he doing back at the plant? Did I think Norman was going back to the factory? No, somebody else was using that locker room. But who? Alright. My old office safe sat on the floor. I used to keep tax records and other important documents in it. It used a digital passcode lock, but I didn't have the code. Maybe I left it somewhere. I leafed through the notebook I had taken from the forest, and it were the names that had been written down. Those poor girls. Were they victims of the same person who killed Rachel? I wonder what happened to the other names on the list, or the ones that were scratched out on that desk in those wet tunnels. Well, there's not too many places we can look for that passcode, so let's check everywhere. It was a letter I had taken from the post box. Who had it out for Norman? And who sent him the letter? It must have been someone from the neighborhood, or at least somebody wanted it to look that way. Wasn't sure what to think. Did he murder Rachel? No, no way. Norman had ended up dead himself. Whoever sent that threatening letter must have got it to him. But who the hell was that? I still had no idea what was on that tape I found in the garbage. If only I had found a way to watch it. Let's go upstairs one more time. There might be a pass lock code up there. There we go. The laptop was dead, but I found some notes and loose paper in the drawer where I had found a key. There was a yellow sticky note with an 8-digit code on it. Did I take it? The code looked like it could be for the safe, but what kind of phrase is that? Alright. The code I found should have let me access to the safe. Did I try to open it? The code worked. I pulled open the small safe and peered inside. There was a photo in there of Rachel and I when we first moved to town. We were smiling outside the front of the house, which looked like a real mess. We looked happy, though. Odd, I couldn't remember who took that photo. Inside the safe was also an envelope. The front of it read, "Do not open until I tell you." I guess this was as good a time as any to see. Did I open the envelope and read what was inside? I tore open the envelope and removed the yellow lined paper inside. On it was a letter written in hand that looked familiar. The letter read, "I know this whole event has probably been pretty difficult. You can't imagine how hard it's been for me too. Well, maybe you can. That isn't meant to be an excuse, but, well, I hope you can better understand what I've done, why I've done. Moving to this town seemed like such a dream, a quiet place to get established, to live out our lives, to be together. But you know as well as I do that things quickly changed. Your drinking was one thing, but as you grew more distant, as you retreated into that world of yours, well, it was clear you didn't need me as much. In fact, maybe you never needed me at all. But it took all this time to make you realize. In the end, though, you may never forgive me for this. You may never forgive yourself, but this is probably for the best. You'll be healthier for this. I'm just sorry it had to end this way. Rachel." It seemed like I had seen all there was. Maybe I thought I was ready to go back into the basement. Maybe there wouldn't be anything for me to find, but I had to take a last look. If I was guilty, I could take this to a warm, safe place and do something about it. Did I pick up the knife? I took the knife and kept it firmly in my hand. I needed to put an end to the situation one way or another. The mail still sat there, heaped on the floor. How long did it reach one length of the... Knew I needed to escape that nightmare, but what about the knife I still carried? I wondered, even if I left, would it really be over? So, did I leave the house forever? Living in this town hadn't been easy. The plant had helped in some way to stay grounded. It kept me in line, gave me something to do, and helped me get away from my past. When the factory closed, everything changed. I guess that was when I had started sleepwalking, disappearing for hours at a time. I had MRIs and piles of doctor's reports, but nothing seemed to help, not even drinking. I swear I had tried to give it up. I know it. The sleepwalking never really went away, though. But I know Rachel had tried. I know she had even tried to be there for me, even when everything was falling apart. This night had unearthed terrible truths, but I know it was a final act of the long-standing horror I had been living. Waking up in that house tonight was the final cruelty. I wish I had remained unconscious in that room forever. It was obvious to me that the man I had found in the house had something to do with all this. Could he have killed Rachel? It started to seem that there were too many things I had seen to think otherwise. Now that I had thought of it, those sewers were a terrible mystery. What had happened there? I was lucky in my way to even find my way out of there. But I never did find out what was on that tape that I now kept. What might it have shown to me? I had found the contents of my wallet scattered throughout town. Why the hell I had been out there? Had my sleepwalking gone to some new extreme? Then thought that I couldn't account for my whereabouts, but knew I had been to that forest and even Norman's place. Well, it was terrifying. I didn't know what all that meant, but at least I had recovered my things. Hopefully, I thought, that would cover my tracks, so I wouldn't be blamed for all this. Even more troubling were those poor girls I had found in those terrible woods, half-hidden, shallow graves. Their secret deaths seemed like the ultimate defiling. If I hadn't found them, would anyone have done so? Would they have even been missed? I vaguely recalled the desk I had seen in those tunnels, the names etched there. Someone had killed those girls. Was it that man? Whatever had happened, I knew at least that Norman wasn't the one who kept going back to that factory. I hoped it meant that he had nothing to do with the guard's violent end. But who had been rooting through those lockers or drinking in those boarded-up rooms after the factory? I thought I might find some solace if I could just get to Norman's store. But all that I had found were more horrors and more questions. Now that I really consider it, that's when I should really have seen it coming. Damn, Norman. How did you get mixed up in all this? I knew you weren't a perfect man. None of us are. But you didn't deserve this. Maybe whoever had done you in was responsible for the other murders that happened in that town. At the very least, I was convinced you and Rachel were killed by the same person. I sincerely hoped that you would find some peace, my friend. I knew I never would. When I had marched through the rain towards home, I desperately clung to the hope that all this would end, and I guess in a way it did. But how could I have known how hopeless all was? I had started to feel as disoriented as when I sleepwalked. To think of it now, I guess I should have known from the terrible silence that greeted me when I first stepped into our house and stood there in the kitchen. There was no sound of television, radio, even the air was still. But seeing Rachel there, lying ruined and discarded in the basement, it was a horror I could have never imagined. Didn't know if I'd even find out the answers I craved, but I knew that somehow that other man I had found was responsible for this. If not directly, he must have had a hand in Rachel's death. So what was I doing in that damned house of his? Had I found out? Had I killed him? My damned condition made it difficult to know. The memories and time frames were always a mess, and I could never be sure. Knowing that man was dead, though, was a cold comfort. My wife was gone, and no matter what happened to me now, I was lost forever. As I swung the door open and stepped out into the air, I caught the scent of wet grass and fog. Rachel, my beautiful wife. Just thought of her again, cold and inert, shook me from head to toe. What would I do now? Who could I turn to? It would only be a matter of time before the police got involved, before the neighbors knew. The front lawn was soft and given beneath my feet, and I couldn't shake the urge that I shouldn't stand there, but rather I should run. Alright, and that's the end of the game, guys. So I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but essentially you killed your wife and Norman and all those people. Might have been the sleepwalking, it might have been something else, but all the evidence points to us. So, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this short Let's Play. We'll see you guys in the next game. I'm out.